Welcome. This is the Staff Performance Evaluation Training for Employees, Performance Evaluation section.
In this training section, we're going to provide an overview of the performance evaluation and dive deep into SharePoint about the process. We're going to talk about what facility staff should do for those who don't have computer access, review some performance evaluation tips for supervisor, discuss calibration meetings, and review some common rating errors for performance evaluations, provide an overview of performance evaluation meetings, discuss some timeline and key dates, and then at the end we'll walk through the performance evaluation. I can't do that. Similar to the self-appraisal, the performance evaluation was designed by the committees to be concise and user-friendly. The performance evaluation is a necessary feedback tool conducted by the supervisor as an assessment of the employee's work performance over the review period. Performance evaluation ratings in the form of an overall score will be used to evaluate an employee's contribution for merit-based compensation. Regarding the process, after the self-appraisal has been submitted by the employee, supervisors will be notified by email when the self-appraisal is complete. Following the review of the self-appraisal by the supervisor, the performance evaluation may be developed. The link to access the SharePoint system will be provided by the Office of Human Resources. Just as there are two versions of the self-appraisal, one for classified staff and one for professional and administrative staff, there are two versions of the performance evaluation. As a reminder, a question regarding the successful completion of goals has been added to the performance evaluation. There are 11 performance competency questions on the classified staff performance evaluation. There are 3 additional questions for police officers, custodians, groundskeepers, maintenance staff, and 5 additional questions for supervisors. There are 12 performance competency questions on the professional and administrative staff performance evaluation and 6 additional questions for supervisors. As mentioned before, a link to access the evaluation system in SharePoint will be emailed to all staff employees when the system becomes available. After the link is accessed, this is the page that employees and supervisors will see. Employees will click on the Employee button to access their self-appraisal and will also use this link to view their completed performance evaluation. Supervisors will click on the Supervisor button to view their employees' self-appraisals and complete their employees' performance evaluations. This is a view of the top portion of the performance evaluation. The box in the upper right-hand corner includes employee information that automatically populates. If you are a supervisor, custodian, groundskeeper, maintenance worker, or police officer, your supervisor will check the relevant box so that additional performance competency questions will automatically populate to the performance evaluation. The first section of the performance evaluation is the job definition section. Your supervisor is asked to review and note any significant changes to your job duties since last year's performance review. The next section of the performance evaluation is a listing of the 5 scores and ratings of the performance competencies. Each performance competency question will be scored. In the past, we have required explanations and/or examples for a rating of exceptional or unsatisfactory. However, based on input from employees and supervisors, the requirement for explanations examples for an inconsistent rating has been added. The next 2 slides are illustrations of the 5 ratings of the performance evaluation. An exceptional rating is reserved for the employee that performs consistently superior and exceeds the position requirements. This rating is considered a very high rating. The highly effective rating is a high rating and reflects the employee that frequently exceeds position requirements. The proficient rating is a good rating and acknowledges employee performance that consistently meets position requirements. An inconsistent rating reflects performance where some but not all of the position requirements are met. Unsatisfactory, the lowest rating, is reserved for an employee's performance that consistently fails to meet the minimum requirements, lacks the skills required, or fails to utilize the necessary skills required to be successful. There is one additional category, new, not applicable. This designation can be used for a performance competency or competencies when an employee has not been in the position long enough to demonstrate the required skills and will be reviewed at a later time. The next section is the goals section in the performance evaluation itself. This is that all-important question where the supervisor is going to review all the goals of the employee in totality. Each individual goal will not be measured, but this will be a total score based on the overall success of the completion of the goals. The next section of the performance evaluation are the competency questions. As mentioned before, there are 11 questions on the classified evaluation and 12 questions on the professional and administrative evaluation. Additional questions are added for supervisors, custodians, maintenance workers, and police officers. Although I will not review each question, keep in mind the competency questions were carefully designed by the committees to be concise and easily understandable by supervisors and employees, while also delivering a strong assessment of employee performance. The supervisor will provide a rating for each competency question. A rating of exceptional, inconsistent, or unsatisfactory requires an explanation or example. The additional comments section should be used by the supervisor to address other issues, concerns, successes, or provide overall comments regarding the employee's performance during the performance review period. The bottom 3 buttons allow the supervisor to save progress, send an email to themselves, or cancel their work at any time and start over. Let's review the next section, which is the scoring section of the performance evaluation. Let's also walk through an example so you can understand how we ended up with the overall rating. In this example, there were 12 questions. There were a total of 51 scores, which equaled a 4.25. The competency section was 75% of this evaluation, so that competency weighting was 3.19. The goals portion of the performance evaluation was only 1 question, so in this case, a 4 was scored for the goals. That was 25% of the goals, which equaled a 1. If you add the 3.19 plus the 1 for goals, that equals an overall weighted score of 4.19. Because highly effective is between a 3.5 and a 4.49, this employee received a highly effective overall rating. The bottom portion of the performance evaluation form is the approval section. First level supervisors and second level supervisor approvals are required. Following completion of the evaluation, the first level supervisor will sign and submit. An automatic workflow email will be sent to the second level supervisor for comments and approval. The second level supervisor will either approve or decline. If the second level supervisor declines the evaluation, an automatic workflow email will be sent to the first level supervisor to notify of the declination. The first level supervisor and second level supervisor will communicate regarding any adjustments that need to be made, and the first level supervisor will resubmit. All performance evaluations should receive second level supervisor approval prior to the performance evaluation meeting. The bottom portion of the evaluation also includes the performance evaluation meeting section. Once the face-to-face performance evaluation meeting has occurred, the supervisor will reopen the evaluation, click on I have met with my employee, and an automatic workflow email will be generated to the employee to acknowledge the evaluation and complete the process. The supervisor also has the ability to add attachments as appropriate. Now that we have reviewed the self-appraisal in a prior training and reviewed the performance evaluation form, I'd like to provide an overview of the process. Once the evaluation SharePoint system becomes available, an email will be sent to all staff employees with access to the system. The employee will access SharePoint. The supervisor will review the self-appraisal prior to the development of the performance evaluation. Once the supervisor has developed the performance evaluation and submitted, an automatic workflow email will be generated to the second level supervisor for approval. The second level supervisor will have the opportunity to provide comments and approve or decline the performance evaluation. If the second level supervisor chooses to decline, an automatic workflow email will generate to the first level supervisor. Once adjustments are made, the first level supervisor will resubmit, generating an additional workflow email to the second level supervisor requesting approval. Following the approval process, the first level supervisor will conduct the face-to-face performance evaluation. Once the performance evaluation is complete, the first level supervisor will confirm the meeting has occurred in the SharePoint system by clicking on I have met with my employee. An automatic workflow email will generate to the employee. The employee will use the link in the automatic email or re-enter the SharePoint system to open the evaluation, review, and acknowledge receipt. We recognize that there are employees in the facilities area that don't necessarily have access to a computer. And so for those folks, those employees may complete a paper self-appraisal and turn it in to the supervisor. After the supervisor receives the paper self-appraisal, the supervisor will complete the performance evaluation in SharePoint. The supervisor can then email themselves the performance evaluation, and so they will have a copy of the performance evaluation in their inbox. The supervisor will conduct the performance evaluation meeting, and they will click on the box following the performance evaluation that says, I have met with my employee, and he or she has acknowledged receipt. So once the employee signs that performance evaluation, that's going to be uploaded into the system along with the self-appraisal. If you have any questions about that process, please contact me at extension 3563 or email me at ayardley@twu.edu and I'll walk you through that process. Let's talk about calibration meetings. Once all the performance evaluations have been completed in the department may choose to utilize what is known as calibration meetings. In an effort to avoid supervisors scoring differently, department leadership may choose the option to conduct calibration meetings of all performance evaluations. This can be a tool for departments to provide consistency amongst different leaders in the department. If a department chooses this option, each evaluation in the department is reviewed for consistency. Let's switch gears and talk about common rating errors. These are not unique to TWU or higher education. These are common rating errors that occur with supervisors across the board. One of those is a contrast error, and this is a tendency for a supervisor to compare the performance, positive or negative, with other employees and evaluate based on that. A first impression error is also very common, and this is the tendency for a supervisor to judge whether it's favorable or unfavorable, and that judgment serves as the basis for evaluating their performance over the entire year. The most common, in my opinion, is the recency effect, and this is the tendency for a supervisor to give extra weight to the performance of an employee based on recent performance, whether it's good or bad, and that is used to serve the rating throughout the entire evaluation period. Central tendency effect is when a supervisor consistently rates employees kind of at the middle or the midpoint, the average of the range. And this can be very damaging to high performers. Negative or positive leniency is when a supervisor rates too hard or too lenient, and they tend to do this for all their employees. The halo effect is really what you think it would be. A supervisor will see one aspect of an employee's performance and they'll use that positive to rate the entire performance of the employee. The devil effect is just the opposite of the halo effect. This is when a supervisor takes one or two aspects of an employee's performance that might be negative and then rates that employee based on that piece. They become blind to the positive aspects of an employee's performance, and the overall performance of the employee tends to be negative. Personal bias is very dangerous, and this is when a supervisor tends to rate an employee based on how that supervisor feels about that employee. Other personal biases can also come into this, such as considerations of race or gender or faith, social or family backgrounds. When those things are similar to what the supervisor experiences, then this can be the tendency for the supervisor to bias the evaluation of that employee. The performance evaluation meeting is an opportunity for the supervisor and the employee to meet face-to-face to review and discuss the employee's performance over the period. The supervisor will assume a dual role. As the evaluator, the supervisor is the decision maker. the supervisor will communicate ratings decisions to employees and the overall result of the evaluation. As coach, the supervisor will review employee accomplishments, assist employees to solve work-related problems, and suggest ideas for improvement. However, this should not be a one-sided meeting. Employees should feel free to point out their own accomplishments, any obstacles or challenges to performance they have experienced over the review period, and offer ideas for future improvement. Additionally, the employee should be given the opportunity to ask questions and clarify expectations for the future. Employees should prepare for the performance evaluation meeting. Take the time to review the job description once again and be ready to discuss any relevant changes where appropriate. Since the successful completion of your goals is scored on the evaluation, review your goals and be prepared to discuss the accomplishment of those goals and/or any obstacles to goals that were partially completed or not completed. Review your self-appraisal so that you are reminded of the accomplishments you have provided to your supervisor. One of the most important things you can do is to prepare yourself to receive feedback, whether it be positive or negative. Remember, the supervisor is the reviewer in this process. This is a review of our work performance over an entire year where accomplishments have likely occurred as well as areas where we need improvement. Be prepared to receive both. Additionally, be prepared with questions to ask your supervisor. This is an opportunity for employees to not only review past performance, but also clarify the supervisor's expectations for the future. If you have questions about this training, any other training, or just general questions about the performance evaluation process, please contact me, Tony Yardley, or Amelia Grimes in the Office of Human Resources.